Okay, I talked about Saul and Paul, right, you missed, thank you. I talked about Saul, who turned into Paul, right? Talked about how he was blinded by a light. And then Ananias was a prophet of God. He came and he prayed for Saul. Even though Saul was persecuting Christians and killing Christians, Ananias still came and prayed for him, right? Talked about how sometimes you're afraid of the things that are going on in your life, but sometimes you have to push through that fear in order to be the one that helps someone else, right? Talk about that. Okay, so today we're kind of going forward with that. I lost my place like that. But I'm actually going to talk about someone named Lazarus today.
Lazarus.
Not the Lazarus effect, no. Have you guys heard the story of Lazarus? Yes? Okay. Well, don't worry. I'm going to read it to you. So, let's get started. It's in John 11, starting at verse 1. It says, a man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. This is the Mary who later poured the expensive perfume on the Lord's feet and wiped them with her hair. Have you guys heard that story? So this is the same Mary, just for context. Her brother Lazarus was sick, so the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. But when Jesus heard about it, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Then he said, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but now we'll go and wake him up. The disciples said, Lord, if he's sleeping, he will soon get better. They thought Jesus meant Lazarus was simply sleeping, but Jesus meant that Lazarus had died. So he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there, for now you will really believe. Come, let's go see him. Pause for a second. That sounds a little crazy. So, just to backtrack, Lazarus was Jesus' friend. Lazarus, his sisters, Mary and Martha, they're Jesus' friends. So they sent for Jesus to come and save Lazarus because he's dying of this sickness. And Jesus says, okay, I'll come. But I'm going to wait till after he dies. Okay, let's keep going. Thomas said to his fellow disciples, let's go too and die with Jesus. So where Jesus was going, they wanted to kill him. So they told Jesus not to go in the first place. And Jesus was like, well, I'll wait 2 days, but I'm still going to go. So Thomas was like, okay, well, I guess we'll go with you, even if we're going to die. So that's what that's about. When Jesus arrived at Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been in his grave for 4 days. Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people had come to console Martha and Mary in their loss. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him. But Mary stayed in the house. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus told her, your brother will rise again. Yes, Martha said, he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day, which she's talking about the rapture in the last days of the Bible. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, Martha? Yes, Lord, she told him. I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. Then she turned to Mary. She called Mary aside from the mourners and told her, the teacher is here and wants to see you. So Mary immediately went to him. Jesus had stayed outside the village at the place where Martha met him. When the people who were at the house consoling Mary saw her leave so hastily, they assumed she was going to Lazarus' grave to weep. So they followed her there. So at this point, we have Jesus and Mary and Martha's coming, but also this crowd of people are coming. So we're getting a big crowd to come and see what Jesus is about to do. Okay. When Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. Then Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her. A deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Where have you put him? He asked them. They told him, Lord, come and see. Then Jesus wept. The people who were standing nearby said, see how much he loved him. But some said, this man healed a blind man. Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying? Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. Roll the stone aside, Jesus told them, but Martha, the dead man's sister, protested. Lord, he has been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible. Jesus responded, "Didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe?" So they rolled the stone aside. Then Jesus looked up to heaven and said, "Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me, but I said it out loud for the sake of these people standing, so that they will believe that you sent me." And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. Jesus told them, "Unwrap him and let him go." So that was a lot of scripture, and I told my dad before I did this, I was like, I think that's too much scripture. He's like, no, it's okay. So, but I needed to give you the whole story so you could see the picture in your mind. So, first of all, Lazarus was Jesus' friend. And we know Jesus, right? We know that he can heal the sick, and he did heal the sick quite often. Mary and Martha were also Jesus' friends. So when they asked Jesus to come save his friend who was dying, naturally, you would think, of course, Jesus would go and save him. But God had a bigger plan. Jesus already knew that Lazarus was going to die and be resurrected, but nobody else knew this. Jesus told them that Lazarus was going to die, but that he didn't necessarily tell them what was going to happen. He just said for the glory of God. So they had no idea that this was going to happen. Talking about fear, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were afraid for Lazarus' life. That's why they called Jesus, because there was no one else to call. Lazarus was dying. Can you imagine being Lazarus in this moment? You know you have a special friend, Jesus, who can come and save you, and you're laying dying and he hasn't come. Can you imagine actually dying, being Lazarus? He actually died. That would be pretty terrifying. What about Mary and Martha, their brother? Their brother is dying, and they know Jesus can come and save him, and he hasn't come yet, and he's getting closer and closer to dying. That would be pretty fearful. I would be afraid if my brother were dying, and I knew that one person could come and save him, and they hadn't made it yet, and he's so close to dying. Martha believed in Jesus' power, but even she didn't know how great the power was. This is the point of this whole story. I'm kind of going a little quickly because we don't have that much time, but Martha came out and met Jesus. You notice that part? Martha came out and met Jesus when he got there, but Mary stayed inside the house. When I read it, I imagine it as Mary was a little upset with Jesus. A little salty, you're right. Her brother died. I mean, think about it. Put yourself in this situation. You're friends with Jesus, who can come and he can do anything. And you call for him to come and save your brother who is also his friend, and he doesn't come in time. And your brother dies. I would probably be a little bit mad too. Mary didn't know the story. She didn't have this story to read. She was living in it. All she knew was that her brother was dead and that Jesus didn't help him. That's what she was thinking in her brain. So I see it as Martha came out and was like, I'm going to go talk to this Jesus because he should have come earlier. And she comes out and she says, Jesus, if you were here earlier, he wouldn't have died. And Jesus is like, okay, yeah, what's up? Where's Mary? You know, he's really cool about it. That would probably make them even more mad. Because Jesus knows what's going to happen. And the sisters don't. They thought that their brother was gone forever, naturally. If somebody dies, you start the grieving process because death is like final, right? It's final to humans, to humanity. But sometimes God will give you something that seems too big to handle. I'm sure Mary and Martha, when their brother was dying, they weren't thinking, yes, this is a test from God. Great, I'm excited about it. I can almost promise you they weren't thinking that at all. I imagine that even if they thought something was happening, that God was testing them, they were thinking, this is awful, I can't get through this. If my brother dies, I'm going to be devastated. Have you guys ever been in a situation like that? Something is happening around your life and you can't control it. They couldn't stop you from dying. They didn't have that power. I'm sure they were praying and they were waiting for Jesus to come because they knew that Jesus had the power. They knew that Jesus could do this. But they were pretty much helpless in this situation, and that helpless situations cause fear. They were fearful. I know they were. If I was in that situation, I'd be fearful too. Sometimes God allows things to die in our lives, whether it be metaphorically or physically, in order to show us something greater. So to me, when I read this story, Lazarus represents the idea of what your life is going to be. When you guys are at school and you're asked what you're going to do with your life, I know they ask you that all the time because I was in school too. And they say, are you going to go to college? What's your major going to be? Are you going to go to VOTEC? Right? When they ask you that, does a little movie play in your mind of what your life is going to be like? When you think about your future, do you have a little movie in your mind that it might be like that? To me, Lazarus represents what Mary and Martha thought their life was going to be. What the people who saw this miracle thought Jesus was. They thought he was ordinary, with powers from God, you know? Like, they weren't thinking of him as the Son of God at this point. They were kind of like, yeah, he's Jesus, he heals the sick, of course, yeah, okay. Kind of taking him for granted a little bit, if you read it. Not that they meant to, but they couldn't fully comprehend his power. They couldn't fully comprehend who he was at this point. Because Lazarus died, Jesus was able to show his true power through God to everyone who was gathered there. There was a crowd at this tomb, and Jesus said, hey, roll away the stone. And they rolled it away, and he said, get up and get out of there, Lazarus. You know, you're alive. I know you're alive. And everyone was probably like, this is crazy. I forget, Mary, it was either Mary or Martha, they even said, he's been dead for 4 days. We don't want to take away that stone. That's gross. Yeah. That's what they were thinking. He's going to stink. I'm not rolling away that stone. And Jesus was like, come on, guys, do it. And this part of the story shows that they actually had a lot of faith in Jesus, because if a guy comes up to you and says, hey, roll away this stone to this tomb, dig up this grave, what do you... No. That's gross. That's crazy. But they did it because they knew Jesus, and they knew that he was powerful. They knew that he was the Son of God, but they didn't fully understand the depth of his power then. When God allows hardships in your life, he's preparing you for something greater to come. My dad always says it better be Jesus. But it's true. You guys, I know at this time of your life, you're trying to figure out your future. You're trying to figure out what's going on around you, what's going on at your house, what's going on with your friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. You shouldn't have boyfriends. Anyway, that's my opinion. But no, I'm just kidding. But right now you're trying to figure out who you are and what's going on in your life. And I'm sure sometimes things come up and you're like, this is stressful. I can't do this. But sometimes things like that are going to happen. Things like that are going to happen if you're with God or you're not. Let me tell you a secret. If you're with God, you're way more likely to get through it unscathed. You will get through it unscathed with God. Because he gives you all the tools that you need. They're right here in the Bible. You know, you can have a Bible on your phone. You can take it with you everywhere you go. You have everything you need to get through these trials that God allows to happen in your life. And sometimes they are not fun. Sometimes that fear comes in, but fear is a part of change, and change is a part of growth. You can't grow and stay the same, right? You're not the same size as when you were a newborn baby, are you? Amos, I hope you're not the same size as when you were a newborn baby. That would be terrifying. Either way, if Amos was born his size, or if he were still the same size as a little baby, both of those would be scary. The point is, we're getting off track, Amos. You're always getting me off track. The point is, we have to grow, and we have to change when we grow. Do you guys ever have growing pains? Oh, I had growing pains. Ava has growing pains in her life all the time. I did too. Those things hurt. And they don't go away until they do, you know what I mean? They're just there. Oh, no, don't do that. But growing pains are a natural part of life. But sometimes, speaking from personal experience, growing is really scary. Change is really scary. You guys are in high school right now. Most of you. Some of you are in middle school. But eventually you're not going to be. In the next few years, 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to be out of high school. You're going to be in the real world, whether it be college, career, whether you have, God forbid, a family. Not yet. Wait, not yet. But whatever it is, when you're out of high school, everything is different. And you don't know that till you get there, but it is. Everything changes, and you are forced to grow. I think it's the scariest when you're forced to grow. When you're forced to change into something that you didn't necessarily want to change into, you didn't necessarily want to get a full-time job, but you wanted to go to school and that's what you had to do. Those are the kind of decisions that come up after you're out of high school, maybe right now. Some of you guys may be having to get jobs right now, or maybe having to, I don't know, move in with other people, or whatever is going on in your life. Change is hard. Sometimes big things happen in our lives and change us quickly. I'm guessing when Lazarus died, it wasn't a one-day sadness, and then they were like, well, okay, well, Jesus didn't come. That's all right. What's next? No, that was their brother. Think about that. You guys have, well, most of you guys have siblings. If one of your siblings died, that's not easy to get over. Fear is uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable, but sometimes we have to be faced with that fear in order to push through to the greatness that's waiting for us on the other side. As I've grown up and had to change, been forced to change, as I've been telling you guys, I'm not telling you guys anything that I haven't gone through. As I got out of high school and had to decide who I was going to be, really, when I couldn't be in the marching band and on the pom squad and all the stuff that I thought defined me. When you have to define who you are yourself, you figure out really quickly that you need that help. You can't do it on your own. Things are going to happen in your life, and you're going to be afraid, and you're going to grow, and you're going to change, and it's going to be painful at sometimes. But when you have God and you have that promise that through that pain there's something greater waiting for you, through that pain you're going to get stronger, you're going to get smarter, it's worth it. Alone, it's just pain, and you don't know where the end is, and you don't know how you're going to get out, and you don't know if you want to get out, if you want to live another day. But when you have God and you have a promise that your life is worth something and that it means something, you can get through anything, I promise you. And I bet most of these adults, if not all of them, can tell you that. Because they've experienced a lot more than you guys have, just because they're older. As you get older, you'll understand all this stuff that's going on and all this stuff that you're going to have to decide. And I bet if you talk to any one of them, they could tell you lots of stories of times in their life where it was painful, where they had to grow and grow fast, where they thought there wasn't going to be an end. But I bet they can also tell you about the times when they stepped through that final painful moment, and they realized, oh, that's what this was all for. Thank you, God, you know? I bet you they had those aha moments too. So, to wrap this all up, I just want to tell you guys, first of all, we love you guys here.
Amen.
And the whole point of this is that you guys aren't alone, that you don't feel alone, because you're not. If you're going through anything, if anything is happening in your life, I'm not saying that your brother is dying. That's just an example, a symbol. If something big is happening that you can't control and you want to talk about it or you want to pray about it or whatever, we are here for you for that. We're here to teach you so that you can do this on your own throughout your life. There are going to be points in your life that are painful, that are fearful. But when you have God and you have a church family, you're never alone and you're never without hope. And I want to encourage all of you guys to get with somebody. Any one of us, me, Matthew, Becky, Denise, Kim, anybody that's in this room, I guarantee they would want to talk to you. And I don't know, I just love you guys. Even though you're talking and Orlando's talking. Anyway, thank you guys for letting me come and speak to you about crazy stuff. Dead people coming back to life. Well, I want to talk about this though because it's Halloween, you know? It's Halloween. Lazarus is like a zombie coming out of the grave. He's just out, he's decaying. No, he wasn't really. No. Jesus didn't do that to him. He didn't make him be decayed when he came back to life, I promise. Amos, yes, you have a question.
Okay, so, what happened after he saw what got off?
He came out and he was all wrapped up like a mummy, He was wrapped up in his grave clothes and he's like I imagine like hopping out of the grave because he's all wrapped up. He can't move.
Rolling out, like wrapping,
Jesus said, unwrap.
Yeah, Jesus was like, all right, take them off. You're done. You don't need them anymore.
What happened after that?
He was alive. Okay. He died again sometime later. Who knows? All right. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, guys.